Hey! Welcome to part 3 of my Melty Blood Systems tutorial. This time we'll be going over defense. Again, this topic may mention the use of Magic Circuit and Moon Gauge, but more information about those will be covered in future content. As with most 2D fighting games, the most standard method of defending yourself is blocking, which in this game is called guarding. I will be referring to it as blocking for most of this video. It is performed by holding the movement controls away from the opponent. There are 3 types of blocking: stand block, crouch block, and air block. Standing block will allow you to defend against attacks that hit mid or high. Crouching blocks will allow you to defend against attacks that hit mid or low. Attacks that hit low will break through the defense of people caught stand guarding. And similarly, attacks that hit high will break through the defense of those who are crouch blocking. The hit properties of an attack, aka high, low, and mid, vary for every attack. But if you're not sure, the rule of thumb is that aerial attacks hit high, standing attacks hit mid, and crouching attacks hit low. There are certain standing attacks that hit high, and such moves are referred to as overheads. Air blocking is somewhat unique compared to the previous 2 block types. Air blocking will automatically defend against all aerial attacks and projectiles, but are vulnerable to all attacks performed by a grounded opponent. Oftentimes, DP-style moves that cause the player to jump into the air will also be air unblockable. Universally, blocking does not defend against throws, and throws are a good way to open up opponents who are idly blocking all of your attacks. The defender can negate or tech the throw by pressing throw themselves the moment they are grabbed. As Melty Blood is a quick game with a lot of movement, it can be very easy for opponents to jump over you and confuse you on which way you should block. Melty Blood has somewhat simplified this by implementing what is known as cross-up protection. If you are stand blocking, or in other words, walking away from the opponent, you will block their next attack automatically, even if they end up on the opposite side of you. As you have to be walking backwards and not crouching to have cross-up protection, this protection will fail you if your opponent anticipates this and jumps over you in order to use a low attack. Shield is one of the core defensive mechanics of Melty Blood. Pressing D will put up a barrier that will protect you against attacks. Shields become active instantly when used, making them a valid reversal option if you're in a pinch. They can be held for as long as you'd like. However, they have a fairly long recovery once released, and you cannot transition from standing shield to a crouching shield. Shields can block certain attacks which are unblockable via normal guard. Grounded shields have the same protection rules as blocking, so low attacks will break through standing shields and high attacks will be crouching shields. Airborne shields behave quite differently from standard shields. They will defend against all attacks directed at the shield, be they grounded or airborne, as long as you are facing the opponent. The airborne shield has 3 notable weaknesses. The first of which is that you cannot perform other air actions until you've hit the ground once you've executed an air shield, similar to your BC aerial actions on Whiff. The second is that air shielding does cause a notable end lag when you land on the ground, which an opponent can exploit in order to land a full punish on you. The third is that air shield does not cover your back, so quick and savvy players can get behind you and snag you with a fatal counter if you are jump shielding recklessly. Shields cannot defend against throws, and being thrown while you are shielding results in an untechable fatal counter that causes the throw to deal 25% additional damage. If on the other hand the throw used is a command throw, it deals 10% additional damage instead. If you successfully block an attack with a shield, several things happen. If the attack blocked was an opponent's direct attack, or in other words, not a projectile, the opponent loses the ability to cancel that attack into any of their standard cancels. They do, however, unlock the ability to cancel the attack into shield, so long as the attack used isn't an invincible special move, EX Edge, Force Release, Arc Drive, or any of their moon skills. This makes those previously mentioned moves extremely punishable if shielded. If the attack that was shielded is a projectile that has combo follow-ups, such as Seal's Quarter Circle Back B, the attacker can still continue with those combo follow-ups as long as they execute them before the projectile hits the shield. However, you will probably get punished if you choose to do the follow-ups. They still have the option to use shield if their ranged attack is shielded. The first move to be shielded while the shield button is held down will freeze the screen for a while, but if you continue holding shield thereafter, no such freeze will occur if subsequent attacks are blocked. Certain EX Edge attacks have knockback properties that are designed to make them fairly safe, but shield nullifies pushback from all blocked attacks. Once you have shielded any attack with your shield, if you decide to continue holding shield, you can then choose to press away or down to change the guard position for subsequent attacks. Once you release shield and use a new one, however, you are no longer able to change the new shield's guard position until you've blocked at least one attack. Even though shields are normally vulnerable to throws, an enemy cannot be grabbed while they are in the middle of shielding attack. They can, however, be hit with a high or low mix-up for a fatal counter, provided they haven't used a counterattack beforehand. Whenever you successfully shield an attack, you will also restore a little bit of true HP and a bit more gray HP. You only get this HP bonus the first shield you land when holding the button. Though I don't plan on going into detail about Moon Gauge until later, I will also note that correctly shielding an attack will also grant you 2 moon icons as soon as you release your shield or cancel it into a counterattack. You will always gain 2 moon icons as your reward, regardless of how many attacks you shield prior to your counterattack, or even if you are later fatal countered. There are 3 follow-up attacks that can be done once you've successfully shielded an attack. While there is no invincible prompt for executing them, these attacks do in fact have a few invincibility frames during their startup. The A or C follow-up attack for shielding executes a launcher attack that is fully invincible until the attack's recovery frames. It auto jump cancels and can be comboed just like any other launcher. The B follow-up attack for shielding executes a delayed Dragon Ball Z style teleport attack that delivers a high attack on the opponent behind them. It is invincible until its first active frame. This attack cannot be cancelled on hit or block and does not combo out of a standard hit. However, on a fatal counter, it causes a floor bounce that can be confirmed into a full combo. The B plus C follow-up attack after shielding executes an extremely fast slice-through attack that is invincible for most of its duration. On hit, it launches the opponent into the air and they cannot recover until touching the ground. Despite appearing as though this follow-up uses 2 icons of your moon gauge, it actually requires 5. The reason it appears as though you only lose 2 to 3 moon gauge icons for using it is because of the 2 moon gauge reward you get for shielding an attack, and an additional moon gauge for when you land an attack. Therefore, if you have less than half of your moon gauge when you shield, you cannot execute this follow-up. If any of these follow-ups are shielded, you can then cancel them into shield, which can lead to some interesting back and forth shield shenanigans. If you are attacking someone and they shield an attack, you have the option to perform a shield counter follow-up attack even though your attack was shielded by pressing B plus C. This follow-up costs half of your moon gauge, although none of it gets refunded. This follow-up will allow you to escape from the situation without having to guess which follow-up your opponent will use for their shield counter. Some characters can even do true punishes if the opponent attempts to use a shield follow-up. This option, however, can be countered if your opponent chooses to continue holding the shield button. Detailed strategies around shield and shield counterattacks won't be covered in this video, but may be later outlined in a later addendum. Even after taking a combo, you may still have several ways to put yourself in a position away from danger, and that's by recovering. You can perform an air recovery by holding one of A, B, or C while you are falling in the air. You will do a small flip, during which you are invincible but cannot act, and then become freely able to act. You can choose to recover flipping towards the opponent, away, or in a fairly neutral position by pressing forwards, backwards, or no direction during their air recovery. After performing an air recovery, you recover all air mobility skills you have, even if you had used them prior to getting hit. While there is no window of invulnerability for air recovering, keep in mind that your opponent will generally have the initiative to strike first while you are inactionable. The alternative to performing an air recovery is to perform a ground recovery. This is done by holding D as you touch the ground. Like an air recovery, you can choose to recover towards, away from, or in a fairly neutral position relative to your opponent. Forward ground recoveries have two notable properties. The first is that you can leap through your opponent and cross them up during a forward ground recovery. The second is that unlike all other recoveries outlined thus far, the forward ground recovery has a window of vulnerability where if the forward ground recovery is expected, your opponent can get a guaranteed punish on you for attempting it. If you choose not to perform either type of recovery, you will plant onto the ground for a while before standing up. Your opponent may be able to continue hitting you during this grounded state for some extra damage before you stand up if this happens. But some combo enders such as air throws prevent this from happening. Being forced to stand up in front of an opponent in your face and waiting to strike can be a terrifying position to be in, but there are a number of actions that you can perform that can get you out of danger and perhaps even retake the initiative as soon as you stand up. In general, performing an action as soon as you exit block stun or get up from a knockdown is called a reversal. I will outline several reversal actions that you can perform that will help you turn the tide of battle. Invincible attacks. Attacks such as Dragon Punches or EX Edges are extremely useful get-off-me attacks that can be used if you are expecting your opponent to do any sort of aggressive action on your wake-up. If you have enough moon gauge, some of these reversals can even be moon drive cancelled to squeeze out some more damage. Keep in mind that if the opponent blocks or shields this action, you are extremely susceptible to taking on a full punish, as invincible actions cannot be cancelled into moon drive on block or shield. Shields. These are active on frame 1 and can be good if you are expecting your opponent to run and attack you with normals or a special move. If your opponent is expecting you to shield, they can counter this by either throwing you, or watching your shield action and doing either an overhead or low to fatal counter you. Backdash. Backdashes have a brief period of invulnerability the moment you activate them, and can be very powerful for putting space between you and your opponent. They can also be used in the corner to make your opponent miss an attack, so you can use your own counterattack. They can, however, be chased down and punished. Moondrive Activation. Activating Moondrive gives you a moment to see what the opponent's action is and respond to it, and it is a great way to give yourself a moment to see what you can do to counter the opponent's action, since it has some invincible startups. However, if your opponent is doing nothing when you activate Moondrive, then they will have the advantage because Moondrive has 2 frames of invulnerable recovery. Additionally, if your opponent is doing an unsafe move when you use your Moondrive on Wake Up, they can respond with their own Moondrive to reset the situation to neutral, which is still a better position for you than it was before. Moondrive Moon Skills. While you are under the effects of Moondrive, all Moon skills have force neutralization frames on startup. This can allow them to function as sort of reversals in a pinch. However, due to the fact that neutralizations can be cancelled by your opponent, they do have opportunities to perform actions in response to your attack, so it will be best not to rely on these too much. Additionally, neutralization frames are unaffected by throws, so throws will counter them. Forced Release. Forced Release, which costs 100 meter, is an action that is completely invulnerable on startup and knocks back the opponent on hit. While it does no damage, it does a great job at resetting the position and giving you some breathing room. Forced Release can also be executed while blocking, but the startup is significantly slower. It is unblockable, but can be shielded or evaded with correct spacing or a backstab. Due to its long recovery, this makes it very punishable if it misses or is shielded, as it also cannot be shield cancelled. Mashing. While often not a great strategy when getting up from a knockdown, if you believe your opponent will back off or block against a potential reversal move, mashing can be a helpful tool to take your turn back and make sure your opponent is keeping their wits about them. That's everything for this episode. In the next one, we'll be going over the magic circuit. Thanks again for watching, take care, and good luck in your matches.